and welcome to GameSack. And in this episode, we're going to do something that we don't normally do. We're going to talk about our recent pickups. And in this particular episode, it's going to be stuff we got at conventions.
Yes, conventions. You know, those cool things where gamers get together and talk to each other and buy cool things, and that's where we got these games from. And it's true, conventions are kind of fun. You get to meet different people, other YouTubers, and of course find those games that you really have a hard time finding out in the wild in your known neighborhoods.
Exactly, and since we literally just got back from Retropalooza at the time we're shooting this, which is a while ago for you guys, we thought, we'd show what we got there and also a few of the previous conventions that we just haven't covered on the show yet.
Exactly.
And with that said, let's go.
This is Kid Clown in Nightmare World for the NES, released by Kemco in 1993. A long time ago, I was looking for some games to cover for a Left in Japan episode and came across a title called Mickey Mouse 3. I played it and I liked it, but as I started doing a bit of research on it, I found out that it was released in the USA. Due to copyright issues, Kemco rebranded the title to Kid Clown and thus began the series. I was a bit disappointed since I couldn't cover that Mickey Mouse game, but it's all good because here I am talking about it now as Kid Clown. Back in 2015, Joe and I were at the Too Many Games Expo in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I knew I wanted this one, and since I've never seen it in the wild, what better place to find a game that you want than a game convention? Well, eBay too, but game conventions are better. I was able to get the vendor to take $5 off his asking price of $85, and I bought it. Yeah, it was more expensive than I really wanted to pay, but hey, I wanted it, so I bought it. And I'm glad I did because the game is great fun. It's an action platformer with a strange story. Kid Clown and his family are traveling to the next town to perform at the circus when they meet the magician called Nightmare. He insists that Kid help him open a treasure vault. When Kid refuses, Nightmare takes his family, and that's where the action starts. I know everybody's thinking it, so let's get the obvious out of the way. Kid Clown is one ugly mofo. If anyone bases their game purchases by cover art, then this title would get passed up immediately. Even inside the game, his sprite is beyond ugly. So for the rest of this review, I'm just going to call him ugly. The game starts out with an introductory level so you can get the hang of the controls. After that, you'll begin your journey through 6 different stages, all with different themes. The thing that sets this platformer apart from others is the weapon that Ugly uses. He has an unlimited supply of balloons that he uses to do many different things. Of course, as a weapon, Ugly can blow these things up and toss 3 of them at a time at his enemies. Most enemies take only 1 hit from a balloon before they die, but others will take a few more. The balloons are quick and you can throw them all over the place, which makes them really fun to use. Ugly can also blow up a balloon and set it on the ground. Jumping on the balloon will act as a spring so he can reach higher platforms. Or he can use it to jump over enemies, which comes in handy more than you'd think. And finally, Ugly can use a balloon to glide and cover more distance before he hits the ground. And this one comes in handy in later levels. The boss fights in this game are simple and it just takes a few moments to get the pattern down. Their attacks are easy to dodge, and if you keep pummeling them with balloons, the fight is over before you know it. The levels are designed pretty well, and there's just enough enemies so you're usually killing or dodging something. Scattered throughout each level are boxes that you can break open. These contain the usual items like health, invincibility, and the ever so popular item that reverses your controls for a short while. I really hate it when games reverse your controls, but luckily it only lasts for about 10 seconds or so. You'll also collect strawberries, which the game likes to call chips. Between levels, you get to play a shooting gallery type game, and your chips are your ammunition. I like it because you can increase your hearts to take more damage in the next levels, and you can even pick up an extra Ugly. For a game that was released in 1993, I feel the graphics could have been a bit better. They're not horrible, but they're just not as lush as, say, Kirby, which was released the same year. The music is decent, and it has the familiar Kemco feel to it, and that's not a bad thing. This is a game that I'm really happy to have in my collection, even though I do wish it starred Mickey Mouse instead of the ugly Kid Clown. I look forward to beating it from time to time, as it's one of those games that's easy to pick up and play.
I picked up Super Tempo on the Saturn at Retropalooza 5 from Tyler, who runs the channel iRetroGamer. That's like Retro Gamer, except with a little I in front of it. We've covered this one in our Left in Japan episodes, but I had to use a CDR that I downloaded and burned. But now I have a copy that I can put on my shelf and gloat about, making me feel really elite and way better than other people. Just kidding. The game itself is very unique and fun. It's a sequel to the 32X game simply called Tempo, but I feel that Super Tempo here is a much more enjoyable game. Though some would disagree. They're wrong though. It's a platformer, it's a shooter, and it even has some fun mini-games. One thing it's not though, is boring. As you play, the game constantly changes things up, so you never know what you're going to be doing next. Well, unless you've played the game before, that is. You control a bug named Tempo and his butterfly girlfriend, whose name I believe is Katie. Tempo can jump and shoot bubbles which will hurt and eventually trap enemies for you. And then all you have to do at this point is touch them. You're rewarded with notes that also act as currency in the game. Katie fires a flamethrower type weapon to burn enemies. When she jumps and uses it, she can float indefinitely. You need to use both bugs, but mainly I like using Katie when I have a choice because she's just more versatile. The boss fights are interesting and always fun. Between stages, you're awarded prizes for the money you've earned and you use it to furnish your home. Yeah, that's right, Tempo and Katie are living together and they're not even married. Such rampant debauchery. Some of the stages can seem kind of easy, while others, like this one, can be very challenging. The visuals aren't super detailed and instead go for the simple cartoon look, which is fine, especially with the amazing colors that they chose. The environments are all drawn very well, like this large body of water underneath the waterfall. Well, that is until you climb up and see where the waterfall is coming from. The music is also pretty simple, and though not outstanding, it fits the game well enough. This is a fantastic game, and the language barrier doesn't get in the way very much. Tyler's late dad was the original owner of this copy, and he gave me a very good price knowing that it would go to a good home. It did, Tyler. It sure did, and thanks. I also purchased Last Bronx on the Saturn at Retropalooza 5. As I recall, it was $30, which isn't bad, isn't great. This one can best be described as Soul Calibur meets Virtua Fighter, or Soul Blade or Soul Edge or whatever the hell they were calling it back then. It's a weapons-based fighter, but it controls very similar to Virtua Fighter. It all takes place in the last Bronx, I guess. I didn't know that there were multiple Bronxes. It's a fun little game with a decent amount of characters and stages for its time. Some of the moves can be tough to figure out, but they're there if you keep trying. The fights mostly take place at nighttime. I like that a few of the stages even have ceilings on them. It all runs at 60 frames per second and in high resolution. Hell, it even says so right on the box. The music is decent and it fits, but I feel it could have been a lot better. There's not much more I want to say about this one other than I needed it, so I picked it up.
Round one, fight!
This is The Horde by Toys for Bob on the Sega Saturn, released in 1997. Back when I used to own one of those 3DO machines, The Horde was one of my favorite games on the system. But eventually I sold my 3DO along with all of its games, and I still don't regret it. When Joe and I went to the Game On Expo in Phoenix, Arizona, I was browsing through one vendor's Saturn games and saw this one sitting there. He wanted $30 for it, and I passed thinking that I might find it somewhere else cheaper. I went by that booth multiple times, and every time the game was still there but in a slightly different place, so I knew other people were looking at it. Eventually I said, what the hell, I'll get it. Sadly, this dealer wasn't willing to haggle, and they even charged me tax. A bit upset, I still bought it anyway, knowing that it was a great game and I was happy to have it again in my collection. In the beginning, you're treated to a decently long intro movie of a serving boy named Chauncey, played by Kirk Cameron, who is serving food to the nobility. As he's doing his royal duty, the king starts to choke on his food while listening to a funny tale from his High Chancellor, who's played by Michael Gregory. Nobody notices the king choking except for Chauncey and the Chancellor, who apparently wants the king dead by the look in his eyes. Chauncey hurries to help the king and saves his life. For his reward, the king gives the lowly serving boy his sword and a small tract of land for his very own. The only problem is the land is always under attack by the Horde. It's up to you to develop the land and make it suitable for others to farm and live. But your ultimate goal is to make money while fending off the Horde. Everything you do revolves around money, and at the end of each season you have to pay taxes that get higher and higher, kind of like I did when buying this game. To do all this, the game has two phases, a building phase and an action phase, and these together count as one season. The building phase comes first, and you have to be fast because you only have 2 to 4 minutes to accomplish all you need to do. And there's lots you can do in this phase, and some of it will earn you money while others are more for defense. To earn money, you can plant and cut down trees, or you can put down a cow, which will bring in the coin. To defend your land, you can dig ditches with spikes, or you can dig by water ditches to extend them. If you have the cash, you can also hire knights and whatnot to help you defend your land from the horde, but they're way too expensive for me. Meanwhile, you on the other hand aren't strong. When the horde comes in during the second phase, all you have at first is your sword that the king gave you. You've obviously never held a sword before in your life, and it shows when you fight. You spin your whole body around, and it only takes a few of these spins before you get dizzy and you can't move. So try not to just go and swing your sword willy-nilly because it just won't work. As the seasons go by, you get treated to some cutscenes that are in the form of a fake news update. They try to be funny, but ultimately they just aren't. Just like GameSec.
Minister of Comings and Goings announced that immigration is at an all-time high, suggesting that the new Friends Fly Free policy is working.
If I had one complaint about this game, it would be how slowly your cursor moves in the building phase. I mean, come on, you only have 2 minutes and it's so sluggish to move this thing across the screen. They did make it a bit easier by letting you do all of your work from a zoomed out view, but even here it's still a bit slow. This zoomed out view is also good for when the horde comes along. It takes a few seconds for them to reach your village, and if you get into this zoomed out view, you can see where they're coming from, which helps a lot. The horde is totally annoying, just like it should be. They come in and tear down gardens and houses. Then they proceed to eat your villagers if you don't stop them. And you have to stop them because you lose money for everything that's lost. Like I said before, the game is insanely fun. I really suck at it, but I keep trying and trying because damn, it's just that fun, and I think you might like it too. So give it a try.
All right, we're back. Kirk Cameron.
Yeah, that's a name you don't hear very often, is it?
That is true.
Not even back in the day.
Exactly. Anyway, we've got more games to talk about, so let's go. Way back in 2015 at Retropalooza 3, I picked up Pocket Fighter on the Saturn. Believe it or not, I still haven't played it. Well, no time like the present. We've shown this game on the PlayStation in our Overlooked Gems episode. Did someone say hidden gems? Shut up, Metal Jesus. I said overlooked gems, not hidden. Anyway, it can be played both with and without the 4MB expansion RAM card. You choose from several different Street Fighter and Darkstalkers characters. They're all chibi looking, and you only have 3 or 4 buttons you need to worry about. One each for punch and kick, and another one that does a chargeable attack, and yet another that seems to do a useless taunt. As you beat on your enemy, gems will fall out of your opponent's ass. Yep, those could be considered hidden gems. Ha ha. If you collect enough gems, then you can level up each of your moves so that they're way more powerful. But be careful, because gems fall out of your ass when you're hit, and the enemy can suck them up with their own ass to gain an advantage. It adds a fun twist to the usual Capcom fighting action. Initially, I had a hard time getting used to doing the punches with the bottom row of buttons on my amazing Saturn 6-button controller, which is the best controller for any platform, by the way. But once I did get used to it, everything played smoothly. The visuals are really nice. Everything is vibrant, and I love the art style. I also really enjoyed the nods to other Capcom series like Resident Evil and whatnot. There's even a lot happening in the background to keep you entertained when you're not watching what you're doing. I played both with and without the RAM cart back to back. Honestly, I really couldn't tell any difference. Here's this stage without the RAM cart. Ryu is brown because, well, I selected him with the X button. And here's the same stage with the RAM cart. Ryu is white because I selected him with the A button. Both ways seem to have the same amount of animation and detail. Can you tell the difference? The music is fantastic and it's all Red Book audio, which is unusual for a Capcom game. But that makes it sound much higher in quality than most games that don't use Red Book. This is a great game, and I'm glad I only waited 2 years to play it. Also at Retropalooza this year, I picked up Wing Commander 3 Eye of the Tiger, Heart of the Tiger, for the PlayStation. I've played this a couple of times on the 3DO, and this long box version was in great condition at a nice price, so I figured, why the hell not? This one mainly fascinates me because of who's all in the game's many FMV cutscenes. You've got Mark Hamill on loan from Star Wars, that dude from Indiana Jones and Lord of the Rings, this dude from that Clockwork movie and also that crappy Star Trek Generations movie, this dude from Back to the Future, even this guy from That One Thing. They even used big names on the production side, music by George Clooney, game director Fred Savage, and so on. During the game, you can wander around the ship, and it feels a bit different than the 3DO version from what I recall. The scene of getting into your ship is definitely different. As for the gameplay itself, it's still slow and uninteresting. I really don't have any desire to play it at all, it's just not a game for me. I really don't know why I bought this. They sold me on the names. Damn you, slightly chubby but still sexy 90s Mark Hamill.
Oh yeah?
In the future, Colonel, you have the option of choosing your own weapons, or you can trust my judgment and fly with my default loadout. I promise, Colonel, never to disappoint.
Here's Silver Lode, published by Vic Tokai in 1995 for the PlayStation. It was also released on PC. In the back of my mind, I have a memory of renting this game and enjoying the point-and-click action and the crazy storyline. As the years went by, that memory would emerge, making me want to find and play this again. My search got a bit more serious this year. I always looked at local game shops, and I looked but didn't find it at the Game On Expo in Phoenix. Bummed out by that, but not giving up, I felt that I might find it at Retropalooza 5 in Arlington, Texas. After looking at multiple vendor booths, I spotted it just sitting there and my breath escaped me. I couldn't believe it. There it was in its long box glory. I picked it up and looked at it and was a bit upset that it was missing the instructions, but decided that I really wanted it anyway. I was able to snag it for $40, which isn't bad. I was really excited to see if my memories would hold up, and thankfully they did. As you can see, the game is a first-person style point-and-click adventure set in the Wild West. As with all point-and-click type games, to progress the story you have to find the on-screen hotspots that let you interact with them. And there's many ways to interact with this game. As you move your cursor around the screen, you can change it to various things like an eyeball, which will let you look closer at something, or your character will give his opinion on what you click on. There's others that are pretty self-explanatory, like a cowboy boot to move, or a hand which will let you grab an item. And there's a few more, but I won't bore you with all of them. Not like you're not bored already. In the beginning, you stumble upon some settlers that were attacked by werewolves the night before. The werewolves took a kid from one of the settlers, and he wasn't man enough to stop him. Now he's asked you to go after them and get his kid back. He tells you that the town of Silver Lode is where the werewolves came from and gives you a bag of beans to help you start out. Alright, beans. The gameplay's pretty smooth for the most part. Every now and again I had troubles finding hotspots to click on, but eventually got the hang of it. And I like it because it's not totally straightforward. If you make the wrong decision, you can and will die. But if you save your game frequently, it won't be a problem. One thing that I'm on the fence about is the audio. It only has ambient sound effects, and I really do like how they did it. However, there's really no music here, and I kinda wish there was. And to break up the point-and-click action, you can get into some auto-scrolling first-person shooter scenes. These are pretty simple, and I think the targeting is very lenient, as some of these bastards that I've shot seem to die when I didn't have the reticle on their body. I've got to say that I really like the artwork in this game. All the scenes are drawn really well, and there's lots of detail in each one, and I'm always looking forward to seeing the next area. The characters that you interact with are also done pretty well. Their lips don't sync up with the voice acting, but you know what, who really cares?
So, you're the gunslinger, huh? Give the big man a warm hello, boys!
Speaking of voice acting, it's pretty much hit and miss. Some are decent and fit the character really well, while others are just, well, not good. I think my favorite is this manual laborer whose voice sounds like it's straight out of a Warner Brothers cartoon.
You'd be tired too if you had to lug this cart around all day.
I laugh every time I talk to him.
A hammer for smashing big rocks. That's my favorite, mister.
So yeah, the game is a good time, and I'm glad I finally got it. And if anyone has a Silver Lode instruction manual just laying around, let me know.
Ugly son of a gun. Wonder what crime you were killed for, my friend.
At Game On Expo in Arizona earlier this year, which is 2017 by the way, I was able to score Gran Turismo 2 on the PlayStation and also the Bleemcast disc for that game. I've never had a Bleemcast disc before, so I was pretty stoked. Gran Turismo on a regular-ass PlayStation still looks pretty good for its time. Well, actually, I should say it looks really damn good, all things considered. I mean, there's next to no texture warping, which is mind-boggling for a PlayStation game. The models and physics and stuff like that are all quite impressive as you slowly trudge around the tracks in your super low-budget extra economy car. Very exciting. But how could this slow-paced racing and license-earning simulation get any better? Well, by playing it on the Sega Dreamcast, of course. Just load the Bleemcast disc, remove it, and then insert the PlayStation Gran Turismo 2 disc. All of a sudden, this looks like this. The resolution jumps from a lowly, pathetic, and indiscernible 240p to a super sharp, better than real life 480p! Sega makes everything better. I did the math, and going from 240p to 480p, it's like 6 million times better. Not only that, but you get 72% more Dragula from Rob Zombie. No, seriously though, the game does look a lot better. The emulation isn't perfect, but it does a good job cleaning up all of the nasty dithering from the PlayStation version and rendering the polygons in a higher resolution. It's not as good as a real Dreamcast game, but it's definitely nice. It doesn't increase the frame rate, however, and you might see an intermittent graphic issue here and there. The controls are mapped to the Dreamcast controller well enough, but to be honest, I prefer playing with the PlayStation controller more. The game will also need its very own dedicated VMU if you want to save your game, so keep that in mind. I still can't play this game very well, and it's still really not for me. And also, you may not like the changes made to the graphics, it's all subjective. But still, I'm glad to have an actual Bleemcast disc and a game to run with it. Also at Game On Expo, I picked up Need for Speed The Runs on the PlayStation 3. In this game, you play as a guy who has the runs and you need to race to the nearest bathroom as fast as you can. Anyway, Dave got this way back when it was released and kept telling me how great it was and how I should get it. Naturally, since it was Dave, I ignored him. But at Game On Expo, we were wandering around and saw it, and Dave started singing its virtues again. It was cheap, so I thought, what the hell, and I bought it. Initially, the game isn't very impressive, mainly because you play as this turd whistle. I just don't like how he looks. But I can appreciate needing to find a nearest bathroom ASAP, so I'll help him get through traffic and enemy cars who wish for him to soil not only his underwear, but also his car seat. You're driving across the entire USA trying to visit as many different bathrooms as you can, and it features various scenes from many different locations. After playing this game for a bit, I'm still not very impressed. For one, I happen to be very good at racing games, but this one is just frustrating. The enemies are relentless and the AI is often way better than you. Secondly, the controls feel extremely floaty. Also, the game is plagued with insane loading times. If you wreck, you get to stare at a long loading screen while the game sets you way back. Even selecting your car is frustrating because each one must slowly load. The graphics are pretty good, but it certainly isn't the best looking racing game on the system. The music is all licensed to garbage, just like you'd expect from EA. There's fun to be had here, I just think it could have used a little bit more time in the kitchen. The last game I got at Game On Expo is Road Rash on the Saturn. Wow, I sure got a lot of racing games there, didn't I? They should change their name to Racing Game On Expo. No. Anyway, we talked about this one in our Road Rash episode, of course, but now I have it for my very own. It's also available on the 3DO, PlayStation, and the PC. The Saturn version here seems to have the best frame rate, believe it or not. It's not a huge difference, but it is noticeable. But the music is extremely weird. It's the same tunes as the other versions, but they chose very poor instruments to recreate it here. As a result, it just sounds dumb. Still, I'm glad to finally have every version of 32-bit Road Rash at my disposal. And since I can do this in much higher quality now, let's show all of them. This is a 3DO original running in spectacular S-video. And this is the PlayStation version, which was released next. And of course, here's the Saturn version. Last but not least, here's the PC version shown for the first time ever here on GameSack. I still cannot get over that giant motorcycle dashboard at the bottom of the screen that actually hides your bike from time to time. Whose idiotic idea was it to include that? Anyway, I didn't get this version at Game On Expo, so screw it. The Saturn version here is what I wanted to show, and I'm glad I have it now.
All right, there you have it. Those are some games that we've picked up from conventions.
Exactly, and it's probably going to be a while before we go to another convention.
Yeah.
If you guys like this type of episode, would you like to see us continue it? But, not necessarily with convention videos, but like, recent pickups once we gather enough. We can show you guys what we got and review them.
Yeah, something like that.
Let us know. And in the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack. I love you, Super Tempo. You truly do belong on my shelf. Shelf's complete. Complete.
Dude, was that Super Tempo you just bought? I've been wanting to try that, dude, ever since your review. It looks so freaking awesome. But don't worry, I'll take care of it. You know me, man. Don't worry.
But my shelf.